Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And sometimes, as those of you who watch with some frequency know, we take a meaty question, but we really use it as an excuse to have a conversation with someone who we want to speak with. And so for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. And today, our guest is somebody I'm proud to call a collaborator and a friend, Anne-Marie Slaughter, who now leads New America, but has been an academic where she was dean of the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton. She's been a government official where she held I think it was the #2 role, the policy planning role in the State Department. She was the first woman to hold the job. Came to a different kind of prominence, writing about the struggles of women in the context of work and family life. And today, just today, has her, I think it's your 8th book out, which is called Renewal. And my copy is yet to arrive, even though I pre-ordered. I considered trying to get the UK edition 2 weeks earlier, but about the role of using crises in our lives, personal, professional, political, and otherwise. And so, Anne-Marie, the question today is, how do I learn when a crisis arises? And thank you. It's just a fun excuse to have you here.
Roy, it's great to be here and just to have this conversation. So the short answer to how do I learn from a crisis is run toward the criticism. So this book, Renewal, starts with a big professional crisis that happened 4 years ago. And I called David Bradley, who was the chair of Atlantic Media, the publisher of Atlantic Magazine, knows a thing or two about crises and mentoring and all of that. And he says to me, run toward the criticism. And his example is instructive. He says, so imagine you're arguing with your spouse, and it is clear to you that your spouse is 98% wrong. That's something we can all identify with. And maybe,
you've met Sarah. That has never happened in my relationship.
Never happened. Never happened.
Continue.
Maybe 2% right. No matter what, run toward that 2%, which is just not our instincts. Our instincts are to defend, to rationalize. If we're feeling really vulnerable, ad hominem attack comes in. But really, it's about running and asking people, what did I do wrong? And really be honest. And that is how you start what he called, and I have been on, a learning journey.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of when I think it was Bayer, actually, I can't even remember which brand it was. Maybe it was Tylenol, that had their recall and just immediately owning responsibility for it. And it's funny because it feels like that attitude has been, people seem to know that you ought to own up when something goes wrong, and yet we find it so difficult. Is it just a habit? I mean, I guess I'm asking, how do you do that? I mean, other than somebody, because I'm sure people are watching and nodding along and thinking, yeah, I should do that. And then a crisis is going to come up and I'll say they, but maybe it's me. I would deflect or dodge, and all these knee-jerk reactions come up. And so I'd love to hear anything you want to share about your own journey. How in our own lives do we actually build that muscle?
Yeah. And it is a muscle. I think that's exactly right. And I'm still practicing it. And I haven't gotten there with my spouse fully yet, but hey. So there's a difference between owning it and really seeking to get more feedback,
acceptance versus invitation, if you will.
Absolutely. So I owned my own responsibility. In fact, the first chapter of the book is called Leadership Means Leadership when it means having to say you're sorry, right? So I was able to say, I'm responsible, I'm sorry. This was different. This was calling every single one of 20 board members and saying, okay, I serve on boards. I know that you can really like the CEO, but still think he or she is doing a bad job. And I need you to tell me honestly what you think of my leadership. And something similar to my staff. And that is different. That's saying there's something here and I need to learn from that something. And to do that, I need to understand more. And I actually need to look back and see, was there a pattern? Because I have led in other situations and had other situations where I'd brushed it off. And now I'm thinking, maybe there was something in that. So it's really digging for it, which is definitely not natural.
I mean, and you would think that people who are exposed to more crises, would find it automatic. And, I don't remember exactly what came up when you were at State, but I feel like, maybe there was like a South Korean warship that was sunk or something like that. I mean, natural disasters, I'm sure there were natural disasters. And I think that I'll speak for myself. When I was coming up in the workplace, I looked at more established leaders and thought, well, they must have it all figured out. And the lesson to me of what you're describing over the last few years is that the nature of a crisis is it's always the thing that's just beyond your capacity. And I love the invitation to seek out learning, and to me, just to say one last thing, I feel like I've been burning your ears this whole time, but I feel like from your Atlantic piece where, you wrote Why Women Still Can't Have It All, through this, you sort of keep pushing forward the vanguard of how honest we can be with ourselves, of just calling it like it is. And I think that truth is the currency of the realm. I mean, too many leaders have manufactured personas. And so I really just appreciate if the fundamental of leadership means never having to say you're sorry, maybe advanced leadership is inviting the reasons why you may have things for which you need to say sorry that you don't even know about yet. So thank you for that, Emery.
Oh, well, I think that is right. I do think also, though, the whole idea of renewal. So the second thing you learn from a crisis is not to wallow in your own failings, right? So you do need to look for the criticism. You do need to take it on board. But as any therapist will tell you, and any of us who've gone through plenty of therapy will tell you, you cannot change if you're doing nothing but beating up on yourself. And I talk about this for individuals and for the country. So in that process, you need to find a strength and a confidence, and you can't lead without confidence. You really can't. You have to be able to say, hey, I am stronger because I now know the worst, right? I didn't have to worry about what my board members were thinking. They told me.
I can't get any worse than that.
Exactly. And often what we fear is worse than what other people think. Many of us are often harder on ourselves than other people are. But
actually, so the most ambitious people are often the ones. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I love you express love through interruptions.
Yes, it's true. I do. But I mean, immigrant families. The thing about that search for criticism of others is I find that we often want simple solutions, and the great leaders, to me, the ones I've worked for and worked with, they are paradoxes. And one way in which they're a paradox is that they can both be extremely self-aware, self-critical, but also have faith and conviction in what it is that they intend to do. And, to me, one of the differences between a leader and others is a leader can hold those diametrically kind of opposed abilities together and find ways to integrate and reconcile them. And, that's why the journey of leadership is really just one that I keep learning from and I'm grateful for. Any parting thoughts before we say goodbye to folks?
No, I will end on exactly that note. I think we need far more complexity in just about everything, including in our national narratives. So what is true for you as a person and your organization is also true for all of us as a nation. So we have to make it more complicated, and we have to work on that both and muscle.
Yes.
Right? It's not either or, it is both and we can we be big enough to hold it all?
Make America nuanced again. Or something. All right. Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. And I'm looking forward to many more conversations. And we're coming up on 5 years after the uncommission we did to anticipate scenarios for the future of work. And because we had multiple scenarios, we were right. But I also think we've learned a lot and a lot has come true. All right. To be continued. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Such a pleasure, Roy. Always.